On July 29, 1981, an incredible 750 million people around the world tuned in to watch what was called the wedding of the century. It was the start of a modern fairy tale, a radiant and shy bride, a handsome prince, and a ceremony so magnificent it truly seemed like a dream come to life. The Archbishop of Canterbury even said, "Here is the stuff of which fairy tales are made," and for a moment the entire world believed it. Were you one of the millions who watched it live? Let us know in the comments if you remember that special day. To the world it looked like the perfect royal fairy tale. But behind the scenes, beyond the cheering crowds and the palace walls, a very different story was taking shape. While millions celebrated the union of Prince Charles and Lady Diana Spencer, a quiet and painful confession had already taken place. It was a truth that signaled not the start of a grand love story, but rather the beginning of its unraveling. What the cameras missed was a night filled with crushing disappointment and a frightening realization for the new Princess of Wales. This is the story of what really happened on Diana's wedding night, the truth they tried to keep hidden. To truly grasp the weight of that night, you need to understand just how massive the fantasy was. The wedding of Charles and Diana wasn't simply a royal event, it became a worldwide phenomenon. For a Britain battling social and economic challenges, it offered a much-needed escape. The day itself was declared a national holiday, and around 600,000 people crowded the streets of London, all hoping to catch a glimpse of the 20-year-old bride in her glass coach. Every detail of that day was crafted for spectacle. The ceremony took place at St. Paul's Cathedral was chosen over the more traditional Westminster Abbey because it could hold more guests, 3,500 to be exact, and it allowed for a longer, more dramatic procession through London. The media frenzy was intense. Diana's face appeared everywhere, from tea towels to commemorative pork pies. She was no longer just Lady Diana Spencer. She had become a symbol of hope for the monarchy. The story sold to the public was irresistible. A shy, beautiful kindergarten aide had captured the heart of the world's most eligible bachelor. She seemed like the perfect choice, an aristocrat who was also approachable and real. The palace, especially Charles's father, Prince Philip, had been putting pressure on the Prince of Wales to settle down. Diana, who was young and considered malleable by the establishment, seemed to fit the bill perfectly. At least at first, Diana was swept up in it all. In tapes recorded for her biography, she spoke about the excitement she felt at the beginning. She said, "I remember being so in love with my husband that I couldn't take my eyes off him. I just absolutely thought I was the luckiest girl in the world. He was going to look after me." That last part is especially heartbreaking, given its innocence. It shows what she truly believed she was getting, not just a royal title, but a partner who would love and protect her. Was she naive or simply hopeful? The world saw a stunning dress with a 25-foot train, shy smiles, and that iconic balcony kiss, a picture-perfect beginning. But beneath the surface, the foundation of this fairy tale was already crumbling. For Diana, the nightmare had already started. The cracks in the facade didn't appear overnight. They had been shaking her world for weeks. Her engagement, which was portrayed as a whirlwind romance, was in reality a deeply isolating experience. Diana herself once revealed that she and Charles had only met about 13 times before he proposed. They were almost strangers, trying to form a relationship while constantly in the spotlight of the media. This relentless pressure took a heavy toll. During this period, Diana's struggle with bulimia began to intensify, an eating disorder she would battle for many years. It became a physical sign of her deep emotional distress, her way of trying to control a life that felt like it was slipping away. When she got engaged, her waist measured 29 inches, but by her wedding day, it had shrunk to a startling 23.5 inches. She was quite literally shrinking under the weight of all that pressure. But the sharpest source of her pain had a name: Camilla Parker Bowles. Diana wasn't just imagining things, she found real, painful proof of Charles's unbreakable bond with his former lover. The most infamous discovery was a bracelet. Not long before the wedding, Diana came across a package holding a gold chain bracelet. It was engraved with the letters G and F, the nicknames Gladys and Fred that Charles and Camilla used for one another. It was a gut punch. This wasn't just a keepsake from the past. It was a new gift Charles planned to give Camilla right before marrying Diana. In her own words, Diana was left distraught, furious, and utterly powerless. This wasn't the only red flag. Just a month before the wedding, at Prince Andrew's 21st birthday party, Charles pointedly ignored his fiancée the entire night. Feeling abandoned, Diana danced frantically with other men, and then eventually by herself, a public display of her private pain. Afterwards, she ran to her sisters and confessed she couldn't go through with the wedding. Their response was blunt. As Diana remembered it, they said, "Well, bad luck, duck. Your face is on the tea towel, so it's too late to chicken out." By then, it had all gone too far. She was trapped not by love, but by merchandise and public expectation. Think about it. What would you have done in her place? Of all the hidden truths, one moment stands out as the most brutal. It was a shocking confession that shattered whatever hope Diana had left. The night before the wedding, while the world buzzed with anticipation, Diana was at Clarence's house filled with anxiety and struggling with her eating disorder. She was just 20 years old, about to become the most famous woman on earth, but knowing in her heart that the man she was marrying loved someone else. In that moment, Charles, in what some have called a misguided attempt at honesty, reportedly made a devastating admission. According to Diana's confidante and astrologer, Penny Thornton, Charles felt he needed to be honest. He didn't want to start the marriage under a false premise. So on the night before their wedding, he allegedly told Diana that he didn't love her. Just think about that. This wasn't a simple misunderstanding. Thornton says it was a direct statement from the groom to the bride. She described Diana's reaction as shocked, calling the admission devastating for Diana. In fact, Diana seriously considered calling off the wedding. That night, both Charles and Diana reportedly cried, but for very different reasons. Biographer Penny Junor wrote that Charles felt trapped, believing he was making a mistake with no way out. Meanwhile, Diana was heartbroken, mourning a dream that had ended before it even began. This shocking confession casts the entire wedding day in a new light. What do you think about Charles's admission? Was it an act of cruelty or an attempt at honesty in an impossible situation? Share your thoughts with us. What the world dismissed as simple bridal nerves was, in reality, the deep anguish of a woman who knew the truth. In her own recordings, Diana described feeling like a lamb to the slaughter as she walked down the aisle. The conversation she had with Charles the night before was the final blow. It meant that, in Diana's own haunting words, her wedding day would become the worst day of my life. Quote, on the morning of July 29, 1981, London was alive with a festival atmosphere. But inside Clarence's house, the mood couldn't have been more different. Diana was physically ill from the stress and still battling bulimia. While the world was getting ready to celebrate, Diana was getting ready to perform. Her journey to St. Paul's Cathedral felt surreal. In the glass coach, sitting beside her father, she was cheered on by 600,000 people lining the streets. But Diana wasn't just looking at the crowds, she was searching for a single face, Camilla Parker Bowles. She knew Camilla would be there. Searching for her in the congregation became a painful obsession. The ceremony itself, a blur of grand music and private anxiety, passed quickly. During the vows, Diana famously slipped, mixing up Charles's first two names, calling him Philip Charles instead of Charles Philip. Charles also stumbled, saying "thy worldly goods" instead of "my worldly goods." Even the words meant to bind them together seemed to fall apart. In a move seen as radical at the time, Diana requested the word "obey" be left out of her vows. It was a small but powerful act of self-assertion. On a day when she felt she had no power at all, she vowed to love, comfort, honor, and keep him, but she refused to promise obedience. What do you think about that decision? The day's most iconic image is the balcony kiss at Buckingham Palace. It thrilled the crowds and even sparked a new royal tradition. But looking back now, that image feels tinged with sadness. Diana was still hoping that the ceremony, the public declaration, and the sheer force of the moment might somehow change his heart. She still wanted to believe, as she would later remark in her biography, "Well, was I wrong on that assumption?" The long walk was finished, but her journey into isolation was only just beginning. After all the pageantry, the palace doors finally closed. The public fairy tale had ended, and now the private reality for the new Prince and Princess of Wales was about to unfold. After a reception for 120 guests, the newlyweds were driven to Waterloo Station, a playful "just married" sign attached to their carriage by Princes Andrew and Edward. From there, they boarded the royal train to Hampshire, setting off to begin their honeymoon. They spent their first night as husband and wife at Broadlands, the grand estate of Charles's beloved great-uncle, Lord Mountbatten. The setting was symbolic. It was the same place where Charles's parents, Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip, had spent their own wedding night. However, the mood inside was far from joyful. The confession from the night before lingered between them. While there are no minute-by-minute accounts, Diana later recalled the night as awkward and emotionally empty. Charles himself reportedly described it as nothing special, but pleasant enough. More troubling still, he reportedly called his new bride painfully naive. This condescending remark reveals his true attitude. He viewed her longing for love not as something natural, but as childish. In his mind, he had already been completely honest with her. For Diana, that night only confirmed her deepest fears. The grandeur of the wedding, the roar of the cheering crowds, all of it faded away, replaced by the cold truth of sharing a bedroom with a man who didn't love her. The emotional emptiness was overwhelming. While the world pictured a night filled with romance, the reality was likely one of uncomfortable silence, with two people kept apart by the presence of another woman who haunted them both. Was Charles being intentionally cruel, or was he simply unaware of how deeply she was hurting? If the wedding night had been a letdown, the honeymoon was even worse. Just 3 days after their wedding, the couple flew to Gibraltar to join the royal yacht Britannia on a Mediterranean cruise. To the outside world, it seemed like a perfect fairy tale journey. But for Diana, it became a 14-day ordeal, one that shattered any hope she still held onto. The real agony came from the ever-present shadow of Camilla. Though she wasn't there in person, Camilla's presence loomed large in spirit and in symbol, the first and most infamous, reminder a pair of cufflinks. As they got dressed for dinner one evening, Diana noticed Charles putting on a pair of gold cufflinks, each one engraved with 2 intertwined C's. She knew they weren't for Chanel. She confronted him. "Camilla gave you those, didn't she?" Charles replied casually, "Yes, so what's wrong? They're a present from a friend." A huge argument followed. Was this the ultimate betrayal to wear them on his honeymoon? Then another blow. 2 small photos of Camilla slipped out of Charles's diary. Even in his most private moments, there she was. Through it all, Charles seemed oblivious to Diana's pain. He brought along a stack of books by the philosopher Lawrence van der Post, hoping he and Diana could read them together and discuss the ideas. But Diana, already shattered, had no interest in heavy philosophy. According to biographer Penny Junor, she hated his wretched books and was offended that he might rather bury his head in them than simply sit and talk to her. Charles also spent hours painting, often leaving Diana feeling abandoned and alone. As a result, her bulimia grew worse and she lost even more weight. Diana suffered from terrible nightmares and would often cry for hours. Charles was reportedly confused by her unhappiness. He couldn't comfort Diana or recognize that her distress was a direct result of his actions. During their cruise, Diana wrote a cryptic note describing the honeymoon as the perfect opportunity to catch up on sleep. That single line summed up her experience of marital bliss, and it was devastating. To the world, the photos showed a sun-kissed princess on a luxury yacht. But the reality was quite different. Behind those images was a heartbroken young woman trapped in a gilded cage. The story of Charles and Diana's wedding and honeymoon isn't just royal gossip. It marks the beginning of one of the most tragic marital breakdowns in modern history. The events of those first few days, the brutal confession, the emotional neglect, the constant reminders of Camilla set the tone for their entire marriage. What the media called the wedding of the century felt to Diana like the worst day of my life. The dream honeymoon turned out to be a nightmare of loneliness. Diana went into the marriage hoping she could change Charles, but she quickly learned she wasn't a partner. She was just there to produce an heir. Still, those traumatic beginnings didn't break her. They changed her. Instead of giving up, Diana looked for the love she missed in her marriage and found it in the public eye. The pain she experienced gave her a unique empathy for the suffering of others. The woman who once felt powerless in the palace found strength by reaching out to the sick and the forgotten. Her confession on her wedding night may have ended her marriage, but in a tragic way it was the start of her journey to becoming the people's princess. The fairy tale was a lie, but from its ashes, a true queen of hearts emerged. How do you remember Diana? As a tragic figure, a rebel, or an icon? If you enjoyed this look behind the curtain, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more deep dives into the real stories behind iconic figures. Be sure to check out our other video, Everything That Went Wrong at Charles and Diana's Wedding, for even more on this unforgettable day. Thanks for watching.